Hi, I'm Jennifer with Martingale, here today to share a trunk show with you of quilts from Simple Whatnots 3 from Kim Diehl. Author Kim Diehl, you might be familiar with her Simple Whatnots Club. She's had Simple Whatnots 1 and 2, and today what I'm going to share with you are quilts from Simple Whatnots 3. 18 petite quilts that are strong on style and a third serving of Simple Whatnots. So let's get started. Kim is known for her spectacular scrappy style, and this quilt is called Farmer's Market. It's a great little quilt that you could use as a wall hanging or a table topper. Super cute little triangle squares and little mini squares. And what I love about all of Kim's Simple Whatnot books is she always shares tips with you for how she does her piecing, how she gets her points just spot on, and tips that will help make you a better quilter. This is called Windspinner. It's a combination of a variety of flying geese blocks as well as a few triangle squares. Again, if you're not familiar with Kim, one of the things I always like is she calls it her chubby binding technique, which is a little bit thicker to the back side. The front still has that really thin binding, but she cuts her binding a little bit wider, and she explains all of that as well. If you are a fan of mixing a little applique into your patchwork quilting, this is called Autumn Tapestry. And there are two blocks here. It's an ingenious way for how she makes them, but there is a block up here in the corner you can see with the four quarter circles coming in, and it leaves sort of that light color in between. And then the block next to it is the circle block, and it has four different pieces that come together to make that. This is using her invisible machine applique, all done by machine, and she teaches you how to do that. And then it has this adorable little applique, oak leaf applique in the center for a medallion style quilt, and this is called Autumn Tapestry. Kim is great about showing you every detail about how to put these little mini quilts together. This is one of my favorites for the color, and it's called Woven Stars. You can see how she's got sort of this special little line that goes through the center of each star to give them that woven effect. And I think that's where Kim really specializes in not just making familiar blocks that you might know, like stars or shapes like that, flying geese, but she always adds that little something extra. And Woven Stars is the name of that one. Next up is Charm School. And these little 9-patch blocks are made from a variety of scrappy fabrics. It really is a very simple quilt to piece together. It has the setting squares in it, but her scrappy style and her arrangement of the more dense 9-patch blocks and the darks and lights location on the others gives it sort of a radiating style from the center. So that's Charm School. This little guy is called Pint Size. And what I love about this, it's a straight set quilt, but she achieves all that movement by changing the outer ring around the 9-patch blocks, and it switches between lights and darks. So super cute, Pint Size. Kim also shares with you through the photography of her book lots of ideas for how you can decorate with these little quilts in your home, whether you tuck them into a bookcase or use them on a tabletop or put them into some of your artful displays. She's got oodles of ideas for how to use them, and the photography in her books always shows that sort of thing. If you're a fan of basket blocks, this little quilt is called Apple Baskets, and she's got 4 blocks, and again has the flying geese sashing in between them, and they sort of radiate out from the center for that secondary design. Here's another one. I love the name of this little guy. It's called Slightly Tipsy. So it's half patchwork. The patchwork is all the way around the outside, and then the center blocks are a little bit of applique. And again, all machine applique. She shows you her technique for doing that. It's a variation on a drunkard's path block, and that is how she came up with the name Slightly Tipsy. And again, if you look to the back, a little bit chunky, her chubby binding gives sort of a framed effect to the back and a very nice finish to her quilts. This one is called Frugal Farm Wife, and it has a sprinkling of make-do blocks in it. And if you're not familiar with the term make-do, it's where sometimes it mimics something of quilters of days gone by where they didn't have a lot of fabric to work with. And so if they ran short, they would piece a couple of things together and make do with what they had. So if you look at like this block here is made of 2 different fabrics before it's pieced into the quilt. And that appears a couple of more times down here in the quilt, and really an adorable little quilt, Frugal Farm Wife. There is also a pin cushion. If you're one of those people like me who always has that favorite fabric and you just can't get rid of the tiniest scrap of it, but you're not sure what you're going to do with it, this is the pin cushion. You're going to make this. And Kim shares in this one, there's some big stitch detail that she's added to this and weighted it down a little bit so she can use it in her sewing room, and that's the windswept pin cushion. Sampler quilts. This is a petite sampler, and I love that about it. It's called This and That. And if you like variety in your piecing, you don't like to do a lot of the same block, there's lots of different things to choose from here, and you can just make a little of this, a little of that, and pretty soon you have the This and That sampler quilt all completed. Just love it. There are also a variety of shapes in the books. This is called Twirly Gig. And one of the tips that Kim shares in the book about this is it sort of has a planned scrappy approach. So you can see from looking at it that there's lots of variety in the fabrics that she's chosen, but she's also very deliberate about how she places those fabrics throughout the quilt. She repeats those fabrics multiple times so you get that balance and overall look across the quilt top. So if you look at this one, when I see it, I see sort of the teal, blues and aqua colors and the golds, and you see things that are evenly distributed across the quilt. So they add a little bit of sparkle, but it's not in just one location. It's all across the quilt top. And Kim shares her tips for that in the book as well. So this next one is a little bit larger quilt, and this is called Village Square. And Kim shares that she has a love of vintage game boards, and that's really what inspired this quilt. So the center has the churn dashes in it, has sort of that game board feel to it, and then she's added the softness of the machine applique around the edges with the berries and the birds, sort of Kim's signature style if you're familiar. She has multiple lines of fabric that she's done with Henry Glass fabrics, and one of the things I always appreciate about those fabrics is that she coordinates them from season to season, and you can really use your stash of Kim Diehl fabrics to mix and match and put together in these beautiful collections. So ribbon candy, you all remember maybe ribbon candy from when you were a kid. Kim thought that was the most beautiful candy in the whole world, and she designed this quilt thinking of ribbon candy and gave it that name. So a cute little pattern that almost looks as though it's woven. Again, it's all about the color placement and adding that sort of pointy, jagged border along the edge to frame those beautiful lines. And that's ribbon candy. I think Kim called this one something like autopilot. Sometimes you just want to sit and sew, whether you're working through something in your mind or you just don't have the capacity to really concentrate on something. She called this her autopilot sewing project, and it's called Cross Purposes. There are no seams that match up, so you don't have to worry about aligning anything. Just an adorable little way to use up your scraps on a simple whatnot, and super cute. This one is called Cross Purposes. Now I love the thoughtful piecing that went into this one. It's called Midnight. And again, it uses that sort of interesting green blue fabric that she's chosen. But if you look at this carefully, you'll notice these gray stars that center around that big center star. And for that, they look like they're peeking out from behind that. And that's really just careful placement of color. And when she pieced the whole top together, the way that she does that makes it appear like those stars are bursting out from behind there. And I love that. So that is called Midnight. This is Making Waves. and a variation on sort of an ocean waves block. Kim shares several tips for how to get accurate piecing, because when you're doing flying geese blocks, sometimes quilters can be a little bit intimidated by getting their points lined up properly, and Kim has several tips in the book that she shares for how to make sure your points come out just where you want them to, and how to perfect that over time as you practice and get better and better at sewing it. And this would certainly be a quilt where you could practice that. So that's making waves. And last but certainly not least, this little treasure is called October Sunset, and it uses a combination of patchwork for the border, wool applique for the little bird on the branch that's there, and then you might not be able to see it, but there's also quite a bit of big stitch quilting on here, and Kim is sort of known for that signature big stitch style, and so that is included in there as a way to finish this. So those are the quilts from Simple Whatnots 3 by Kim Diehl. Look for it wherever you buy books or at shopmartingale.com. Have a great day.